Pull the boss! What's up, I'm Jim Frome. This is the Ready Check Pull Guide for Prototype Pantheon. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters who help make these videos possible. This fight is a pretty clever take on the traditional console-style boss fight, being that the 4 bosses are modeled after the 4 Covenant leaders. You'll fight 2 bosses in Phase 1, 2 different bosses in Phase 2, and all 4 of them at the same time in Phase 3. You'll for sure be bloodlusting in Phase 3 for one of the most insane bloodlust moments of the entire expansion. You'll have at least 2 to 4 targets to hit at all times, and with the specific mechanics each boss has, this fight gets super nutty. In Phase 1, you'll start off by fighting War and Duty. Pull them together and just start cleaving away. Shortly after the pull, Prototype of War will spawn several adds around the platform. These adds will channel a pool on the ground that quickly expands to fill up the entire room. This is bad because stepping into the pool deals moderate damage and makes you completely unhealable. To avoid the room filling up, you'll either send all of your DPS around to kill them one by one, or you can split your raid into ranged and melee groups. Have the range get the far adds while the melee start on the closer ones. Since the bosses are pretty difficult to move, it's pretty pointless to try and stack them on any of the adds, and the adds should die pretty quickly anyway. Make sure to interrupt Gloombolt as much as possible because it does big damage and puts an absolute massive healing absorb shield on the player targeted. However, the most dangerous mechanic is Runecarver's Death Touch, a dot that goes out on several players and after 30 seconds explodes for lethal damage on any player within 8 yards. It then jumps to another player and starts the 30-second countdown again. The way you avoid all of this is by sending the debuff players into the giant white bastion bubble on the ground. When the players get inside, just have a healer dispel them. Do not stay inside of the bubble though, because your healing and damage is reduced by 100%. Prototype of Duty eventually jumps in the air and starts casting winds that push everyone back. At the same time, she'll cast a bunch of swirlies on the ground that, if hit, the player will take a bunch of damage every 2 seconds until the player is broken out. So don't get hit by any of these swirlies, and maybe think about using some raid mobility cooldowns like Windrush Totem or Stampeding Roar. The tanks can also try to drag War on top of Duty to continue cleaving both. Speaking of the tanks, the taunt swap is Humble Strikes, a massive hit to Duty's current target that increases the damage taken from Humble Strikes by 100% and 30% additional damage to the entire raid. So basically just taunt swap when the debuff falls off. Try and keep both bosses around the same HP because when either of them gets to 50%, they both retreat and Phase 2 starts. In Phase 2, you'll fight Renewal and Absolution. These two you'll want to pull closer to the middle of the platform since there's a bunch of things to dodge in this phase. Things like the stampede of soul shapes that run in a line across the platform. Getting hit by one of these does damage and knocks the player back. There's also going to be some blue tornadoes sporadically moving around the platform that do a ton of damage and silence any player caught inside of one, so just avoid these. Renewal will also be casting Animal Bolt, which needs to be interrupted. Now, one of the big mechanics during this phase has to do with the withering seeds that spawn around the platform at about 35% health. Now healers, check this out. If the seeds die, they'll do a bunch of damage to the entire raid, as well as leave a stacking dot that also does a bunch of damage. However, you heal them to keep them from dying. And if you heal them to full, they'll instead do a huge burst of healing to the entire raid, as well as put a 25% healing done increase to the entire raid for 30 seconds. This stacks, which means if you do it right and only heal one of them to full every 20 seconds, you could effectively have 25, 50, or even 75% healing done increase on the entire raid for basically the entire phase. This is one hell of a healer mechanic and I respect it. You'll need all that healing because Absolution puts a permanent debuff on everyone that does a bunch of damage every 2 seconds per stack. Absolution also does Hand of Destruction just like Sire Denathrius from Castle Nathria. He'll pull everyone to him and after 6 seconds does massive damage to the entire raid that's reduced the farther away from him you are. While you're running away, everyone in the raid will also get these red orbs around themselves that after 4 seconds shoot out projectiles in each direction. These projectiles, again, do a ton of damage to anyone hit, stuns the target for 2 seconds, and puts an additional stack of the permanent debuff. All very not good things. The way you deal with this is simple. After you get sucked in, just run away and spread out. Then dodge all the projectiles and everything else that's trying to kill you, and you're good. Immunities, personal damage reduction, and anything else is gonna help out massive here. The tanks will now have a new taunt swap. Absolution will cast Racking Pain, which is a frontal cone just like in Castle Nathria, that does a bunch of damage to any player or any necrotic ritualist hit. This also applies a stacking damage taken increase by 25% for 40 seconds per stack. This is another one of those just turn the boss away from the raid and taunt swap when the debuff falls. However, you might want to consider using this to help clear the adds that spawn in phase 3, but probably not. When either of those bosses get to 50%, the last phase starts. In Phase 3, you'll fight all the bosses at whatever health they previously retreated at. Since you are now fighting them all, you basically have all their abilities to worry about. Healer seeds, tank debuffs, the Hand of Destruction suck, a bunch of stuff to dodge, the Bastion Bubble debuff dispels, and if you're unlucky, you'll need to kill all of those green pool ads again. All of this stuff happens one by one, which makes it pretty straightforward to deal with. The Hand of Destruction is actually going to be very difficult, so make sure to use healer cooldowns and raid movement abilities. You'll also need to have some designated interrupts for War and Renewal, but as long as you Bloodlust here and make sure you kill all the bosses within 20 seconds of each other, you're good to go. And that's pretty much it. Here's a quick recap of the fight for you to review or screenshot for later. Our Patreon supporters get these guides early, so if you're interested in that, check out the links below. Peace.